We have been discussing bird hunting on the last couple of episodes, and on this episode we continue because, as I said, hunting for birds was a tradition. It was something that we had to do for survival, so to speak, and we went out there every day and harvested our birds. The most popular bird, I think, was the sikiye, the yellow breast. There was also the red breast, which was like a family to the sikiye. I think they called them the robin. And there was the moisson, the gobec, the guive tomblade and regular guive. I mentioned that before. The pipirit was not a major delicacy. The dove that I'm going to speak about hopefully on this episode, and other birds. Rami, parrots. We can speak about birds. I mean, birds were like the go-to meat in our day. So we use the traps, as I mentioned before, and we also used lagli to catch our birds. I think the lagli might have been a bit inhumane, thinking about it in retrospect, but it played the trick for us. And for those of you who are wondering what is lagli, what we're talking about, lagli is like a glue, a local glue we normally got from the gourmet tree and other trees too. And we used to create our own little lagli. So that's what we called it back then. Lagli, I think that's a Creole term for glue. So we used to get a little tree, a branch, or a wood, a tree with different branches, a dried one or a green one that we take all the leaves out, or we leave some leaves on it, and we put glue all over the branches. Pop, 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 pop. So if there are 10 branches, they're all glued up, and we plant that tree close to a bunch of banana that's ripening, because birds love ripe bananas. And we cover that nicely there, we put that there. And every time a bird comes and lands on that little tree, it gets stuck. The lagli trap, we call that. And we didn't start harvesting the bird shortly after it gets stuck. Sometimes we leave that there because more birds that get stuck on that branch is more birds that come. Because birds seeing birds landing and birds happily rejoicing, trying to get to the bananas. So that lagli trap would hold at least sometimes 100 birds. Before we take it out, carefully take the birds leg out of the lagli. Sometimes we would, take care of the birds, slaughter them, put them away nicely, and then use the same trap, lagli stick, or get another lagli stick to put lagli on it to catch our birds again. So that was one of the major ways we used to catch our birds sometimes. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I mentioned what we used to do for the doves. Or if I haven't mentioned it, we're going to talk about the dove hunting. So I spoke about the traps, the pliant that we used to do. But then we invented a trap or a technique to catch more birds using the lagli trap. And a lot of us did that as well. The doves were different. They were more delicate. There was some sort of graciousness about doves that you had to devise different ways of catching doves. In fact, there were two different forms of traps we made for the doves. One was a traditional trap where we actually planted a trap in the dirt. We bend it nicely, a big trap, a big stick. And we made like a bed, like a cradle. And we put CWO around the table and a nice big cabouin around the CWO. So when the doves came, the doves were not as aggressive as, let's say, moisture and gobec and them things. So the doves would be very grateful. They would come, ooh, ooh, ooh. They would land, and then shh, and that wood goes up maybe 6 feet in the air, and we have our doves. There was another trap we also did to catch our doves, where we actually had them land, on the feeding area, hop, 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 and we put CWO leading towards a little basket. And when they go into the basket and step on the CWO, the trap comes down a door and keeps them in there. And we just put our hand inside the little basket and take our doves. So there were delicate ways of catching doves, because doves were big money and were nice meat. So we had to treat them a sort of differently. So those two traditions were the traditions we used to catch our doves. And of course the Langley trap, which we did to catch the regular birds, and the pliant, the regular pliant. I think that's enough in terms of discussing birds. We will continue our discussion on Calibishie Chronicle on another topic very shortly.